Welcome to The Explainer. Today, I'm incredibly excited to take you on a really personal, deeply visual journey through a brilliant philosophical text by David Lemmer called Footnotes. It's all about the mechanics of mastering new skills and that relentless everyday battle we fight against our own mental distractions. I've spent a ton of time analyzing exactly how I learn, and Lemmer's framework, it completely changed the way I visualize my own thoughts. We're going to map out the exact geometry of our ambitions, plot our excuses right on an axis, and graph exactly where our focus goes when we try to accomplish something truly great.
So let's start with a number, 1%. Sounds tiny, right? Almost insignificant. But I've realized that if we were to draw a graph of my starting knowledge on literally any new subject, 1% is exactly where that line begins. It's exactly how much of a new skill I actually possess when I finally decide to drop my mountain of excuses and just start learning. Whether we're talking about a completely new trade or a massive subject I've always been curious about, 1% is the starting point. Honestly, it's a humbling reality, but it's also incredibly liberating because it means I'm no longer paralyzed by the sheer vastness of what I don't know.
Okay, let's dive into this. If I visualize my brain's capacity right now, it's divided into two very stark slices. Slice 1, that's that tiny 1% I just mentioned, the fraction of the material I already have under my belt. Slice 2 is that massive, intimidating 99% waiting to be climbed. What Lemmer points out here is fascinating. When I return to a complex subject, my mind doesn't just reset. It starts right where it left off. All I need is a quick refresher, and suddenly, boom, I'm forced to face this massive 99% climb. The well of knowledge is so incredibly vast that its sheer size often makes me refuse to even investigate it in the first place. But man, once I engage that 1%, the climb is officially on.
To really ground this whole philosophy, Lemmer uses a beautifully specific core example, Safrut. If you're not familiar, it's the ancient, holy skill of Jewish calligraphy. Now, I gotta be totally honest with you here. When I see this kind of script, I usually act just like anyone else. I'll look at these letters, acknowledge their breathtaking beauty, and then I just immediately move on. I refuse to investigate further out of sheer distraction. I'll tell myself, it's just not in my nature. Or I'll throw up a whole world of excuses that I claim I absolutely must address before I can even think about dedicating time to it. But if I strip away all those excuses and actually step into that 99% climb, it becomes this profoundly intimate sequence of physical data points. Just think about the steps. First, I have to learn about the ink and the rigorous process just to procure it. Then, I have to physically pluck and sharpen the quills. Next comes the internal discipline. I literally have to pace my breathing perfectly. Only then can I actually write the holy script. Let me tell you, fully committing to this methodical, physical process does something incredible to me. It completely humbles my spirit. It shifts my entire demeanor from chaotic to one of deep, deep calm and awe. And pushing through that disciplined process results in what Lemmer brilliantly calls opening the well of opportunity. It's so cool. When I stick to something wholeheartedly and learn something profoundly new, it effortlessly provides a brand new tool for calculation in my life. It permanently changes how I think. I become so accustomed to the wisdom of this new trade that I start using it constantly to filter my everyday life. It doesn't just change me, it sets an entirely new baseline of thinking that will literally influence how my generations will think.
And this brilliantly illustrates the real-world cost of that new knowledge. Think about the contrast for a second. If I go out and buy a building, my future challenges are directly related to its upkeep, right? I signed up for it, so it becomes my testing ground. But if I take on the immense responsibility of becoming a Sofer, someone with a holy mission of spreading light, I am going to face tremendous, almost overwhelming pushback. Any new environment of high caliber guarantees that my future challenges will be directly 100% correlated to my new elevated level of responsibility.
So how in the world do I build the resilience to handle all that pushback? Well, Lemmer gives this relentless directive. Choose one thing that you will not give up and come back to it for half an hour a day. I have to pick something truly worthwhile. Maybe it's studying medicine, diving into law, charting astrology, or even just committing with absolute ironclad discipline to a daily workout routine. Whatever it is, I have to make it a holy, daily habit. I absolutely cannot procrastinate on what I want. I must carve out that 30 minutes and fiercely, fiercely protect it. But as I lay out this perfect, idealized plan, I have to stop and ask myself a pretty terrifying question. What happens on the bad days, when our vision gets completely clouded? Because let's be totally honest with each other, the bad days will absolutely arrive. They're going to roll in and try to completely obscure the path to what I truly want. All that momentum, all that daily habit building we just talked about, it suddenly feels blurry and uncertain. To combat those blurry days, Lemmer gives me the most effective mental anchor imaginable, the flight to the sibling's wedding. Just picture this scenario for a second. If I have a flight to catch for my closest sibling's wedding,
and a massive traffic jam is threatening to make me miss it, there is no cloud in my mind. There's zero hesitation. I already see myself on the dance floor. Nothing you can say, no detour you suggest will even slightly hint that I won't make it. That is the exact level of unclouded clarity I must bring to my daily practice. When I've studied a subject 101 times, I can forcefully push those clouds away and reach my destination.
But what about when I'm not in crisis mode? What about the quiet moments? That's exactly where we encounter a massive challenge that Lemmer calls the footnotes. These are the outer thoughts that constantly accompany my main objective. If my primary will is to become a Sofer, the footnotes are those quiet shower thoughts, the random musings on a quiet road, the internal chatter that changes how I actually identify with my trade. To succeed, I have to learn to observe these footnotes and be totally content with the sound of my own inner voice, no matter what uncomfortable things it might try to tell me.
And sometimes that inner voice reveals some really hard, uncomfortable truths. Just listen to this. We want to be wholly Sofrim, but our body is so lost in corrupted training. When I relentlessly pursue truth, I start questioning those footnotes. I literally enter the footnotes of the footnotes. And honestly, it gets scary. I start aggressively questioning my own thoughts, and I realize just how deeply ingrained my bad habits and corrupted physical training truly are.
This leads to a profound internal struggle. I ask myself this so often, and I bet you do too. How many more times will I have to tell myself that I don't go there anymore? I'm speaking directly to you right now because I know you feel this too. It demonstrates this deep, exhausting internal pushback. My mind desperately wants clarity, but my corrupted training constantly threatens to derail my focus and drag me right back to those old, unhelpful places.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is, if I have to be brutally honest and actually graph my attention on a chart, the results are kind of terrifying. Bar 1 represents my focus on the main cabin, my primary goal of becoming a Sofer. Bar 2 represents my focus on the footnotes, all those endless shower thoughts and exhausting battles with my corrupted training. Here is the visual warning. If the data shows Bar 2 outweighing Bar 1, I can kiss my main goal goodbye. Not because I don't want it, but simply because I have mistakenly shifted my primary focus to a mere footnote.
Luckily, navigating this whole thing isn't a solo mission. One of the most comforting realizations I've had is that committing to a new discipline instantly opens me up to a community of like-minded people. And there are vital questions I have to ask them. What wisdom do they occupy themselves with? What lessons have they learned over time? How do they deal with stress? These people have already figured it out over time, so I need to actively try to befriend them and draw heavily from their well of knowledge to keep my own focus razor sharp.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because this leads to the ultimate visual tool Lemmer provides for mastering our focus, graphing the flying train. He instructs us to map our mental state as a literal flying train of thought. By drawing out the tracks in my mind, I can instantly diagnose when I'm speeding straight toward my goal and when I am spiraling way off course.
So the crucial point is exactly how we plot these mental tracks. On the main line, my destination is the promised land, my speed is the absolute fastest, and my focus is purely on my goal of becoming a Sofer. But if I shift down to a secondary track, I start worrying about things like, how do I want to show up when I get there? It's a detour, and suddenly my speed slows way down. And if I drop to the third track, my thoughts break away so far that I forget I'm even part of a bigger train. I get lost in the mountains, my speed is completely stalled, and I am taking endless, dangerous detours. Breaking away might feel deep and productive in the moment, but it forces my train off the fast track and around endless mountains.
Which brings me to the final, most vital question I can leave you with today. I want you to genuinely examine your own train of thought. Are you laying track toward your promised land, or are you just building another detour in the footnotes? I want you to take that question with you, conquer your own 99% climb, and stay entirely focused on that main cabin. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep laying the right tracks.